The night the future changed, no one inside the royal palace realized it. Beyond the shining gates, beneath a sky filled with stars, a young woman stood alone on a balcony and questioned everything she had ever been given. She was admired by an entire kingdom. She possessed wealth beyond imagination. Yet the one thing she desired most remained painfully out of reach. Before her journey ended, she would abandon privilege, risk her heart, and discover a truth that would transform her life forever. The kingdom of Ashford was famous for two treasures. The first was its extraordinary wealth. The second was Princess Naya. Stories about her beauty traveled across towns, villages, and distant cities. Some claimed her smile could brighten the darkest morning. Others insisted her eyes carried the warmth of sunlight after rain. Yet those who truly knew her spoke less about her appearance and more about her character. Nia was thoughtful, compassionate, intelligent, and humble. She visited schools supported by the crown. She spent time with elderly citizens who shared stories of the past. She quietly helped struggling families whenever she could. Unlike many people raised in luxury, she never believed herself superior to anyone. At 26 years old, Nia lived a life most people only imagined. Her palace overlooked rolling hills and beautiful gardens. Elegant fountains sparkled beneath the sun. Servants attended to every need. Fine clothing filled her chambers. Safety, comfort, and opportunity surrounded her every day. Yet none of those blessings eased the loneliness inside her heart. There was one dream she could never seem to reach. She wanted genuine love. One warm afternoon, she stood overlooking the palace gardens. Flowers swayed gently beneath a soft breeze. Birds moved between branches while sunlight painted the pathways gold. Everything appeared peaceful, her heart did not. A knock interrupted her thoughts. One of the palace attendants entered respectfully. The king requested her presence in the royal hall. Nia closed her eyes briefly. She already knew what awaited her. Another suitor, another performance, another man claiming affection he did not truly feel. When she entered the royal hall, a wealthy visitor stood beside her father, King Marcus. The man wore expensive clothing decorated with gold stitching. Rings covered his fingers. The moment he saw her, his smile appeared instantly, almost as if he had practiced it beforehand. He praised her beauty. He praised her reputation. He praised the kingdom itself. Then he spent the next hour discussing his businesses, properties, achievements, and ambitions. By the end of the meeting, Nia realized he had asked almost nothing about her. Not her dreams, not her values, not her hopes for the future. To him, she felt less like a person and more like a prize. After he departed, King Marcus looked at his daughter knowingly. She responded with a tired laugh. Another one. Her father nodded. Another one. The pattern repeated endlessly. Weeks became months. Wealthy businessmen arrived. Influential politicians arrived. Noble heirs arrived. Every visitor spoke of admiration. Every visitor spoke of devotion. Yet many seemed fascinated by the crown, the palace, and the fortune attached to her name. Few appeared interested in the woman herself. One evening, Nia sat beside a fountain in the royal garden. Moonlight reflected across the water while the palace settled into silence. Her closest friend, Ava, joined her. Ava had known her since childhood and never feared speaking honestly. After listening quietly, she asked a question few people dared to ask. Did Nia ever wish she were not a princess? The answer came immediately. Sometimes. Ava looked surprised. Nia explained softly. Ordinary people could know whether someone loved them for who they were. A teacher, a farmer, or a shop owner could trust that affection came from the heart. But how could she ever know? Every relationship arrived wrapped in power, wealth, and expectation. A short time later, a grand celebration filled the kingdom with music and excitement. Streets overflowed with visitors, dancers performed, merchants displayed colorful goods. Noblemen competed for her attention with extravagant gifts and promises. Seeking a moment of peace, Nia slipped away beneath a simple shawl and wandered through the marketplace. There she noticed an elderly couple sharing roasted corn beside a small stall. Their clothes were modest. Their possessions appeared few, yet their happiness was unmistakable. The husband fed his wife with gentle care. She laughed warmly. He smiled back with affection that required no audience. Nia stopped walking. For several seconds, she simply watched. That simple moment touched her more deeply than any gift she had ever received. It was not wealth she wanted. It was not status. It was not admiration. She wanted a love that remained when titles disappeared. As she returned to the palace beneath the evening sky, a realization settled inside her heart. Somewhere beyond those walls, she believed a man existed who could love her without knowing she was a princess. What she did not yet understand was how far she would go to find him. And before long, a decision would shock an entire kingdom. Several months passed after that evening in the royal garden. Life inside the palace continued exactly as it always had. Wealthy visitors arrived carrying expensive gifts. Noble families proposed alliances. Influential men praised Princess Nia with carefully rehearsed speeches. Yet every conversation seemed to end the same way. Hope entered the room, and disappointment followed close behind. With each passing week, her faith in finding genuine love slowly weakened. One bright morning, unusual activity swept through the palace corridors. Messengers hurried between offices, advisors gathered earlier than usual, servants whispered excitedly while preparing the royal hall. Curious, Nia made her way toward the throne room. Inside, she found King Marcus seated among several council members. A letter rested in his hands. The king smiled when he saw her approach. He handed her the letter. Another visitor wished to meet her. Nia nearly laughed from exhaustion. Another suitor. The council members exchanged amused looks. She jokingly remarked that every new visitor somehow managed to become more arrogant than the last. The room erupted with laughter, yet when she examined the letter, something immediately felt different. Unlike most royal correspondence, it contained no excessive titles or grand declarations. The handwriting was simple. The language was respectful. There was no boasting, no mention of wealth, no dramatic promises. The letter came from Prince Isaiah, heir to a neighboring kingdom beyond the eastern valleys. For the first time in many months, curiosity replaced irritation. A few days later, Prince Isaiah arrived. The palace courtyard filled with musicians, guards, and servants prepared for his welcome. Nia watched from a balcony above. As his convoy entered through the gates, she studied him carefully. He was tall and confident, dressed appropriately for his position. Yet something immediately caught her attention. Instead of seeking admiration, he greeted everyone around him with genuine respect. He acknowledged the guards. He thanked the servants. He smiled politely at palace workers. Many nobles ignored completely. When King Marcus welcomed him personally, Isaiah bowed respectfully. His voice carried calm confidence rather than arrogance. Throughout the arrival ceremony, he never attempted to draw attention toward himself. More surprisingly, when his eyes briefly met Nia's from the balcony, he offered only a simple smile before returning his attention to the king. Most suitors spent their first moments staring openly at her. Isaiah did not. That evening, a formal banquet was held in his honor. Crystal chandeliers illuminated the dining hall. Music drifted softly through the room. Distinguished guests filled every table. Nia expected another exhausting evening of self-promotion. Instead, she found herself watching a man who spent more time listening than speaking. When elders shared stories, he listened attentively. When servants served food, he thanked them sincerely. Whenever others spoke, he appeared genuinely interested. Later, King Marcus invited Isaiah into a private sitting room. Nia joined them. The king wasted little time asking the question every suitor eventually faced. Why had he traveled such a great distance? Isaiah answered calmly. Some journeys were worth taking. The response sounded sincere. Then came the more important question: what were his intentions regarding the princess? The room became quiet. Many men stumbled when confronted directly. Isaiah remained composed. He explained that he hoped for the opportunity to know her better. Nothing more. King Marcus raised an eyebrow. Most visitors immediately discussed marriage. Isaiah surprised them both. Marriage, he said, should follow understanding. How could anyone promise a lifetime together without first knowing the person behind the title? The answer lingered in Nia's thoughts long after the conversation ended. It was not what she expected. For the first time in years, she felt something dangerous begin to return. Hope. The king announced that Prince Isaiah would remain in the palace for 1 week. During those days, Nia spent increasing amounts of time with him. At first, their conversations remained formal and cautious. Gradually, however, they became easier. One afternoon, they walked through the palace gardens beneath blooming flowers and drifting butterflies. Isaiah asked whether she enjoyed being a princess. The question surprised her because few people ever ask such things. Their discussion lasted for hours. They spoke about responsibility, expectations, freedom, and dreams. For the first time in a very long while, Nia found herself enjoying a conversation with a suitor. They visited village projects together. They attended ceremonies. They played traditional board games. They laughed more than she expected. Day after day, Isaiah continued presenting himself as thoughtful, respectful, and kind. One evening, while walking through the gardens beneath fading sunlight, Nia realized something unsettling. She looked forward to seeing him. The realization frightened her. Hope carried risk. Hope often led to heartbreak. She knew that better than anyone. Later that night, Ava noticed the change immediately. She teased Nia relentlessly, insisting she smiled every time Isaiah's name appeared in conversation. Nia denied everything. Ava refused to believe her. Their laughter echoed through the chambers until tears filled their eyes. Despite her attempts to remain cautious, Nia found herself thinking about Isaiah constantly. His intelligence impressed her. His kindness seemed genuine. His treatment of ordinary people touched her deeply. During a visit to a village school supported by the crown, she watched him spend nearly an hour speaking with children. Nobody requested it. Nobody expected it. He simply enjoyed their company. Watching him laugh with the students softened something inside her. That evening, King Marcus noticed the difference in his daughter. She seemed happier. When he asked her opinion of Isaiah, she admitted that he felt different from the others. Surprisingly, the king agreed. Yet he remained cautious. True character revealed itself only through time. Nia understood the wisdom in his words. Still, she could not stop herself from imagining possibilities. Later, she stood alone on her balcony beneath a sky filled with stars. The kingdom slept peacefully below. For months she had felt trapped between loneliness and disappointment. Now, for the first time in years, she allowed herself to dream about a future filled with partnership, trust, and love. What she did not know was that some people wore masks so perfectly that even the wisest hearts struggled to recognize them. And somewhere beyond the palace walls, a terrible truth was already moving toward her, waiting to destroy everything she had begun to believe. For the first time in many years, Princess Nia felt genuinely happy. It was not the practiced smile required during royal ceremonies. It was not the controlled expression expected from a future queen. This happiness felt natural, unexpected, and deeply personal. Prince Isaiah had now spent several days within the palace. During that time, he seemed to give her every reason to trust him. Palace staff admired his manners. Advisors respected his intelligence. Even King Marcus appeared impressed by his behavior. The king was not easily deceived. Decades of leadership had sharpened his judgment. If Isaiah had hidden flaws, surely someone would notice them. One evening, the palace hosted a dinner honoring several visiting leaders. The atmosphere felt warm and relaxed. Stories flowed freely around the long dining table. Laughter echoed beneath sparkling chandeliers. Throughout the evening, Isaiah remained seated beside Nia. At one point, an elderly guest smiled knowingly and commented that Isaiah appeared quite fond of the princess. The room immediately grew interested. Several guests exchanged amused glances. Nia felt warmth rise to her cheeks. Isaiah responded calmly. He said it would be difficult not to admire someone like her. The compliment sounded sincere rather than dramatic. It was simple and respectful. King Marcus remained silent, but Nia noticed him watching carefully. After dinner ended, guests gradually departed. As servants cleared the tables, Nia found herself smiling. For once, she was not dreading the future. Instead, she felt excited about what might come next. Later that night, Ava helped prepare her chambers for sleep. The moment the door closed, her friend began teasing her mercilessly. According to Ava, Nia had smiled through nearly the entire evening. Nia denied the accusation. Ava laughed. The evidence had been impossible to miss. When the teasing finally stopped, Nia sat quietly before a mirror. She studied her reflection thoughtfully. Perhaps Ava was right. Perhaps she had allowed herself to become hopeful again. The realization frightened her because hope always carried the possibility of disappointment. The following day seemed perfectly ordinary. Isaiah accompanied the king to meetings. He visited local projects. He greeted villagers warmly. Everywhere he went, he appeared thoughtful and considerate. The image of the ideal prince remained intact. As evening approached, palace life settled into silence. The king retired early. Most servants completed their duties. Hallways gradually emptied. Nia spent several peaceful hours reading in the library before deciding to return to her chambers. While walking through the corridors, she encountered a young palace attendant named Brielle. Something immediately felt wrong. Brielle normally carried herself with cheerful confidence. Tonight, she appeared nervous, almost frightened. Nia stopped and asked whether everything was all right. Brielle forced a smile and insisted she was fine. Yet her eyes told a different story. Before Nia could ask more questions, the young woman hurried away. The encounter lingered in her thoughts. Unable to sleep later that night, Nia decided to walk through the palace gardens. Cool evening air usually helped clear her mind. Moonlight illuminated stone pathways, while fountains shimmered quietly in the darkness. As she wandered, she remembered something. Earlier that day, Isaiah had mentioned a book he hoped to borrow from the library. She had forgotten to give it to him. Smiling to herself, she decided to deliver it personally. His guest quarters occupied a separate section of the palace. As she approached, she noticed something unusual. One of the doors stood slightly open. A faint light glowed from within. At first, she thought little of it. Then she heard a voice. A frightened voice. Nia froze. The sound came again. Fear, distress, desperation. Her heartbeat quickened. Slowly, she moved closer. Then she heard another voice. A man's voice. Isaiah's voice. Confusion flooded her mind. What was happening? She stepped nearer to the partially opened doorway. The frightened voice sounded again. This time, there could be no mistake. Someone inside was terrified. Every instinct warned her that something was terribly wrong. Her pulse raced as she approached the entrance. Then she looked inside. The book slipped from her hand. For several seconds, she could not breathe. The young attendant, Brielle, stood trapped against a wall. Tears streamed down her face. Fear filled her eyes. Prince Isaiah stood directly before her, blocking any attempt to leave. The scene required no explanation, no misunderstanding existed, no confusion remained. Brielle was frightened. Isaiah ignored her obvious distress. The truth hit Nia with devastating force. The man she had trusted, the man she had defended, the man she had nearly allowed herself to love. It had all been a lie. Shock shattered into anger. "Stop!" Her voice echoed through the corridor. Both figures froze. Isaiah turned immediately. Panic flashed across his face. Brielle rushed away from him, trembling violently. Nia moved toward the young woman and placed herself between them. She asked if Brielle was safe. The attendant nodded through tears, though her shaking hands revealed everything words could not. Isaiah attempted to speak. He asked for a chance to explain. Nia turned toward him. The expression in her eyes stopped him instantly. It was not sadness. It was fury. Pure fury. He claimed there had been a misunderstanding. The words only intensified her anger. Brielle's tears continued falling. That alone was enough. Nia called for the guards. Her voice thundered through the corridor. Within moments, armed guards arrived. They took one look at the scene and immediately understood its seriousness. Nia ordered them to take Isaiah into custody. For the first time since arriving at the palace, genuine fear appeared on his face. He pleaded with her. He called her name. Only hours earlier, hearing him say it would have made her smile. Now it made her sick. As guards moved forward, she looked directly into his eyes. Pain and disappointment burned within her. Then she delivered words that struck him harder than any punishment. "You were never the man I believed you were." Silence followed. The guards escorted him away. Nia remained standing in the corridor beside Brielle. Everything hurt. The betrayal, the humiliation, the realization that she had trusted someone again. Most painful of all was understanding that her heart had once more been deceived. And as Isaiah disappeared down the corridor, Another devastating truth settled inside her. If even a man like him could hide his true nature so completely, then perhaps she no longer knew how to recognize honesty at all. The morning after Prince Isaiah's disgrace felt strangely quiet. News traveled quickly through the palace, servants whispered in hallways, advisors exchanged concerned looks. Guards discussed the incident in low voices. By sunrise, nearly everyone knew what had happened. King Marcus summoned Isaiah before the royal court. The young prince entered the throne room looking nothing like the confident man who had arrived days earlier. The charm was gone. The polished image had disappeared. What remained was a man exposed by his own actions. The king listened carefully as Brielle, several guards, and other witnesses described the events. When they finished, silence filled the chamber. King Marcus stared at Isaiah for a long moment. Disappointment hardened his expression. He reminded the prince that he had been welcomed as an honored guest. He had been treated with respect and trust. Instead of honoring that trust, he had abused it. Isaiah offered no meaningful defense. The king's judgment came swiftly. He was ordered to leave the kingdom immediately. No negotiations, no second chances, no further discussion. Within hours, preparations were complete. Horses waited near the palace gates, servants packed his belongings, guards escorted him toward the exit. From a palace window, Nia watched the convoy depart. Not long ago, she had imagined a future beside him. She had imagined partnership, family, and love. Now she felt only emptiness. As the final riders disappeared beyond the horizon, she understood something painful. She had come closer than ever to believing she found true love. Instead, she had nearly fallen in love with another illusion. The experience changed her. Days passed, then weeks. Life slowly returned to normal. At least on the surface. Inside, Nia was different. The traditional path toward marriage no longer made sense. Every suitor arrived already knowing she was a princess. Every suitor knew about the kingdom's wealth. Every suitor knew about the crown she would one day inherit. How could anyone truly see her beneath all those things? The question followed her everywhere. One evening, she returned to the fountain where she often went to think. Moonlight danced across the water while the palace settled into peaceful silence. Ava joined her carrying tea. For several moments, neither woman spoke. Finally, Ava asked what troubled her. Nia admitted that Isaiah himself no longer occupied her thoughts. What haunted her was something deeper. If someone like Isaiah could pretend so convincingly, then how could she ever trust anyone again? He had spoken kindly, he had behaved perfectly, he had treated people well whenever others were watching. Yet it had all been performance, a carefully crafted mask. Nia stared at the fountain. The more she thought about it, the more frustrated she became. That night, sleep refused to come. She lay awake staring at the ceiling while ideas raced through her mind. Hours passed. Questions became possibilities. Possibilities slowly became plans. By dawn, she had reached a decision, one that would change everything. The next morning, she requested a private meeting with her father. King Marcus welcomed her into his study. The scent of polished wood and old books filled the room. The moment he saw her expression, he knew something serious was coming. Nia sat across from him. She took a deep breath. Then she said she wanted to leave the palace. The king blinked. For a moment, he wondered if he had misunderstood. Leave the palace? Temporarily, she explained. She wanted to live among ordinary people. Silence filled the room. The king stared at her. His confusion was obvious. Why? The answer came immediately. Because being a princess was preventing her from finding true love. King Marcus sighed heavily. He understood her pain. For years he had watched ambitious men pursue her for all the wrong reasons. Still, her proposal sounded extreme. Then Nia revealed the rest of her plan. She wanted a disguise, a complete new identity. The king nearly dropped his cup. A disguise? Nia nodded enthusiastically. She intended to become a banana seller. For several seconds, King Marcus simply stared. Then he laughed, not because it was funny, because it sounded impossible. A princess, future queen of one of the wealthiest kingdoms in the region, selling bananas. Yet Nia remained completely serious. She explained her reasoning carefully. Every man who approached her saw the crown first. They saw the fortune, they saw power, they saw opportunity. Nobody ever saw Nia. If she lived as an ordinary woman, everything would change. Any affection she received would belong to her alone. Not her title, not her inheritance, not her position. The king listened quietly. The plan sounded risky, unusual, perhaps even reckless. Yet its logic proved difficult to challenge. Eventually, practical concerns replaced disbelief. What about her safety? Nia already had answers. Hidden security, regular check-ins, trusted guards observing from a distance, a safe place to stay. The king considered every detail. Minutes stretched into nearly an hour. Finally, he smiled. His daughter possessed the same determination as her late mother. Once she made a decision, changing her mind became nearly impossible. At last, King Marcus agreed, but only under strict conditions. Nia accepted every rule before he finished explaining them. Her excitement became impossible to hide. She hugged him tightly. The king laughed. He could not remember the last time he had seen her so happy. During the following weeks, preparations began. Only a handful of trusted people knew the truth. Elegant royal gowns disappeared. Simple clothing replaced them. Jewelry vanished, luxury vanished. Even her posture changed. Ava helped teach her how ordinary villagers moved, spoke, and lived. The lessons often ended with laughter. At first, Nia looked completely uncomfortable. Gradually, however, the transformation became convincing. When the process was complete, even King Marcus struggled to recognize her. Standing before him was no longer Princess Nia. She looked like an ordinary young woman preparing for a long day at the market. The night before her departure, she stood alone on her balcony. The palace glowed beneath moonlight. Beyond it stretched the kingdom she would one day rule. Tomorrow she would leave it all behind. At least for a while. No servants, no royal treatment, no crown, only life. Real life. Part of her felt terrified. Another part felt more alive than ever. Before sunrise the next morning, a small carriage quietly departed through a side gate. No ceremony marked the occasion. No crowds gathered. No royal banners waved. Inside sat a young woman carrying baskets filled with bananas. As the palace disappeared behind her, determination filled her heart. Somewhere beyond the walls lived a man capable of loving her for who she truly was, and she intended to find him. What she did not know was that destiny had already begun moving toward her, and before long, an unexpected stranger would enter her life and change everything. The first rooster had not yet crowed when Nia opened her eyes. For a brief moment, she stared at the wooden ceiling above her and felt confused. Then reality returned. She was no longer inside a luxurious palace chamber. There were no silk curtains, no polished marble floors, no servants waiting outside her door, no royal guards standing nearby. Instead, she lay on a simple wooden bed inside a rented room above a small market stall. And for the first time in years, she smiled the moment she woke up. This was exactly where she wanted to be. Today would be her first full day as a banana seller. Today would be the beginning of her search for true love. She dressed quickly in simple cotton clothing and tied a scarf around her head. When she looked into a small mirror, the princess had completely disappeared. Looking back at her was an ordinary young woman, exactly as planned. Outside, the village was already waking. Women swept porches. Farmers headed toward distant fields, children prepared for school. Everywhere she looked, life felt real, alive. She carried her basket of bananas toward the marketplace, while several hidden royal guards followed discreetly from afar. Her father had insisted upon it. The thought made her smile. The market slowly filled with voices and movement. Traders arranged goods. Customers arrived carrying baskets and bags. Friendly arguments mixed with laughter. Nia located the small wooden stall she had rented. It was nothing special. A simple roof, a simple table, a simple life. Yet standing there filled her with excitement. Carefully, she arranged her bananas into neat rows. Her first customer arrived only minutes later. An elderly woman approached the stall and examined the fruit carefully. After hearing the price, she frowned immediately. Too expensive. Nia blinked. Nobody had warned her about bargaining. The woman folded her arms and insisted she could find better prices elsewhere. Unsure what to do, Nia lowered the price. The woman smiled instantly. Moments later, the sale was complete. As the customer walked away, Nia stared after her. Then she laughed. She had just sold her first bananas. The experience felt strangely satisfying. Throughout the morning, more customers arrived. Some were friendly. Some were demanding. Some negotiated endlessly. One man spent nearly 10 minutes debating the cost of only a few bananas. At the palace, such conversations would have seemed ridiculous. Here they felt surprisingly entertaining. By midday, however, reality began teaching difficult lessons. The sun felt hotter than expected. Her feet ached. Her back hurt, and not everyone treated ordinary people kindly. One wealthy trader approached her stall. After hearing the price, he scoffed dismissively and walked away without the slightest courtesy. The interaction stayed with her, not because she lost a sale, because she finally understood something. As a princess, people always spoke respectfully. As an ordinary woman, respect was never guaranteed. Many citizens experienced such treatment every day. The realization humbled her. Days turned into weeks. Gradually, Nia adapted. She learned how to bargain. She learned how to recognize dishonest customers. She learned how ordinary people survived challenges she had never personally faced. One afternoon, a young mother approached carrying a baby. The woman carefully counted coins before selecting only 2 bananas. Nia immediately noticed the disappointment in her eyes. Without hesitation, she quietly added 2 extra bananas. The woman looked surprised. Nia smiled and called them a gift. Gratitude filled the mother's face. As she walked away, warmth spread through Nia's heart. The feeling stayed with her for the rest of the day. Weeks passed. Her little business began thriving. Regular customers returned often. People trusted her, people liked her. Most knew her simply as Nia the banana seller. Nothing more, nothing less. Strangely, she loved it. Nobody expected perfection. Nobody discussed political alliances. Nobody evaluated her future as a queen. For the first time in her life, people treated her as a person. One evening, after closing her stall, she watched the sunset beside a vegetable seller named Miss Eleanor. The older woman had become one of her closest friends in the market. After studying Nia for a moment, Eleanor remarked that she seemed happier. Nia admitted she probably was. The older woman nodded knowingly. Then came a familiar question. Was she married? Nia laughed softly. No husband, no fiancé, no relationship. Eleanor looked genuinely surprised. A young woman like you? Nia smiled. She simply had not met the right person. The older woman patted her shoulder and assured her that the right person often arrived unexpectedly. Nia appreciated the encouragement, yet deep down she remained uncertain. Weeks had already passed. She had met many people. Still, nobody special had appeared. Perhaps her plan had been foolish. Perhaps true love simply was not meant for her. Even so, she refused to quit. Every morning she opened her stall. Every evening she closed it. Life settled into a comfortable routine. Then one ordinary afternoon, everything changed. The marketplace buzzed with activity as usual. Customers moved between stalls. Children laughed. Merchants called out prices. Nothing seemed unusual. Then a sound rolled through the market. A deep, powerful engine. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. A luxurious black Rolls-Royce slowly entered the crowded marketplace. The vehicle looked completely out of place, like a rare jewel dropped into a basket of fruit. Everyone stared, including Nia. The car moved forward before stopping near her section of the market. Silence briefly settled over the crowd, then the driver's door opened. A well-dressed man stepped out. Tall, handsome, confident, yet somehow not arrogant. Curious whispers spread through the marketplace. Who was he? Why was he here? The stranger glanced around, then his eyes landed on Nia's stall. To her surprise, he smiled and began walking directly toward her. For reasons she could not explain, nervousness suddenly fluttered through her chest. The man stopped in front of her table. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he looked at the bananas and smiled warmly. These look good. His voice felt calm and friendly. Nia returned the smile. They are. He picked up a bunch. How much? After she named the price, he immediately handed over the money. No bargaining, no complaints, no negotiation. That alone surprised her. As she prepared his purchase, he studied the market before looking back at her. "You're new here." The observation caught her off guard. She smiled politely and explained she had been there for several weeks. The stranger nodded. Then he remained standing there. Neither seemed eager for the conversation to end. And for reasons she could not yet understand, Nia found herself hoping it wouldn't. Because standing before her was a man unlike anyone she had ever met. A man whose arrival had already captured the attention of the entire marketplace. A man whose life was about to become deeply connected to her own. Neither of them knew it yet, but destiny had just arrived in a Rolls-Royce. For several moments after the stranger purchased his bananas, neither he nor Nia moved. Around them, the marketplace continued its usual rhythm. Vendors negotiated prices. Children chased one another between stalls. Customers moved from table to table, carrying baskets of goods. Yet somehow everything felt distant. The stranger remained standing before her. Nia sat behind her stall, wondering why he had not left. Most customers completed their purchases and continued on their way. This man seemed in no hurry whatsoever. Finally, he smiled. "My name is Elijah." The introduction felt simple and genuine. Not rehearsed, not calculated, just honest. "I'm Nia," she replied. The moment she spoke her name, a small wave of nervousness passed through her. Not because she was lying. Her name truly was Nia. The secret involved everything else. Elijah nodded warmly. "It's nice to meet you." "You too." A comfortable silence settled between them. Then Elijah glanced around the marketplace. He admitted he had not visited the village for quite some time. Curious, Nia asked where he lived. "Several hours away," he explained. That answer made sense. His expensive car, his polished appearance, his confidence. Clearly, he was successful. Yet unlike many wealthy men she had known, he showed little interest in advertising it. That immediately caught her attention. Most successful people enjoyed discussing their achievements. Elijah seemed more interested in conversation. When she asked what brought him there, he shrugged casually. "Business." Then he smiled. "And now bananas." The remark made her laugh. The sound surprised even her. The conversation felt easy, natural, effortless. Eventually, Elijah glanced toward his car. He probably needed to leave. The statement produced an unexpected feeling inside her. Disappointment. She barely knew him, yet she found herself wishing he would stay longer. Before leaving, he smiled. Maybe they would see each other again. Then he returned to his Rolls-Royce and disappeared down the road. Nia watched until the vehicle vanished completely. Only then did she realize she was smiling. The remainder of the afternoon passed quickly, yet her thoughts returned repeatedly to the stranger. There was something different about him. She could not fully explain why. Perhaps it was his honesty. Perhaps it was his calm confidence. Or perhaps it was simply the fact that he treated her like an equal. That evening, Miss Eleanor noticed immediately. The older woman narrowed her eyes suspiciously. Something had happened. Nia attempted innocence. It failed completely. According to Eleanor, nobody smiled at absolutely nothing as often as Nia had during the previous hour. Within minutes, the older woman concluded that a man was involved. Nia groaned. Eleanor celebrated her victory. The following morning, Nia arrived at her stall earlier than usual. She told herself it was because business continued improving. Certainly not because she wondered whether Elijah might return. That would be ridiculous. People did not drive several hours simply to buy bananas. The idea made no sense. Still, she occasionally glanced toward the road, just in case. By midday, she felt slightly foolish. Of course, he was not coming back. Then a familiar engine echoed through the marketplace. Her heart nearly stopped. The Rolls-Royce. Slowly, it appeared around the corner. The vehicle moved through the crowd before stopping near her stall once again. Nia immediately looked away, pretending she had not noticed, pretending her pulse had not suddenly accelerated. A moment later, footsteps approached. Then came a familiar voice. "Hello again?" She looked up. "Hello?" Elijah grinned. He claimed he had run out of bananas. Nia stared at him. The previous day, he had purchased enough fruit for an entire family. She said so. His explanation was terrible. She laughed. He laughed too. Then he admitted the truth. He wanted another conversation. The honesty caught her completely off guard. Most people would have invented an excuse. Elijah simply told the truth. Something about that made her smile. He purchased more bananas, then remained at the stall. They spent nearly an hour talking. About the village, about work, about life, about absolutely nothing important. Yet somehow every minute felt interesting. Before leaving, he promised he would return. This time, Nia did not bother hiding her happiness. The pattern continued. Every few days, the Rolls-Royce appeared. Then every other day. Eventually, almost every day. Sometimes Elijah purchased bananas. Sometimes he purchased only one. Once he purchased none at all. He simply sat nearby and talked. Neither seemed to mind. Weeks passed. With every visit, they learned more about each other. One afternoon, Elijah arrived carrying 2 bottles of cold juice. The weather had been brutally hot. Without ceremony, he handed 1 bottle to her. The simple gesture brightened her entire day. No expensive jewelry, no extravagant gifts, no dramatic displays. Just thoughtful kindness. It meant more than she expected. The realization surprised her. Back at the palace, wealthy suitors had offered diamonds and treasures. None of those gifts had touched her heart. A cold drink on a difficult afternoon somehow mattered more, because it was not about impressing her, it was about caring. As weeks became months, Nia found herself looking forward to his visits. She listened for the sound of his engine. She noticed the time more often. She wondered where he was when he arrived late. The realization made her nervous. After Isaiah, she had promised herself caution, yet Elijah was making caution increasingly difficult. One afternoon, a sudden storm swept across the village. Heavy rain sent customers running for cover. Vendors scrambled to protect their merchandise. Nia struggled to move her bananas beneath shelter. Before she could finish, someone grabbed one side of the table. She looked up. Elijah. Without saying a word, he helped secure everything before the rain arrived. By the time they finished, both were soaked. Water dripped from their clothing. For several seconds, they simply stared at each other. Then both burst into laughter. The rain continued pouring around them. Neither seemed eager to leave. Eventually, they sat together beneath the shelter, watching the storm. The silence felt peaceful, comfortable. Then Elijah asked a question. What did she dream about? If life unfolded perfectly, what would it look like? Nia thought carefully. Many truths remained impossible to reveal. She could not mention the throne. She could not mention the palace. So she answered honestly in the only way she could. She wanted a happy family. Elijah nodded. Then he revealed his own dream: peace. The answer surprised her. People often believed money solved every problem, he explained. It did not. The statement immediately captured her attention, because she understood exactly what he meant, perhaps better than anyone. As rain continued falling beyond the shelter, something changed between them. A wall quietly disappeared, trust began taking its place, and for the first time since leaving the palace, Nia started wondering whether destiny might finally be leading her toward the future she had always hoped to find. Months passed, and by then Nia could no longer imagine her days without Elijah. What had started as a casual conversation over a bunch of bananas had quietly become the most important relationship in her life. Every morning, she wondered if she would see him. Every afternoon, she listened for the familiar sound of his Rolls-Royce. Every evening, she replayed their conversations before falling asleep. It was not only her, the entire marketplace had noticed. Whenever Elijah arrived, vendors exchanged knowing smiles. Children whispered and giggled. Even customers noticed how Nia's face brightened the moment he appeared. The only 2 people pretending not to see the truth were Nia and Elijah themselves. Deep down, however, both already knew. Something was changing. Something neither could stop. One bright morning, Nia was arranging bananas at her stall when Miss Eleanor approached carrying vegetables. The older woman watched silently for a moment. Then she smiled. Nia had rearranged the same bananas 3 different times. Embarrassed, Nia looked down. The woman was right, she had barely noticed. Miss Eleanor laughed. Nia was distracted, waiting for someone. The younger woman immediately denied it. The reaction only confirmed everything. Moments later, the familiar sound of an approaching engine echoed through the marketplace. The Rolls-Royce. Miss Eleanor grinned triumphantly. Case closed. Nia felt warmth rise into her cheeks. Seconds later, Elijah appeared. As always, his arrival brightened her day instantly. Their eyes met. He smiled. She smiled back. Neither could help it. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning." He glanced at the bananas, then at her, then back at the bananas. A mischievous smile appeared. Nia folded her arms suspiciously. "What?" Elijah laughed. He admitted he did not actually need bananas. The confession made her laugh. Then she asked why he was there. His answer came before he could stop himself. "To see you." Silence immediately followed. Both froze. The words lingered between them. Neither had expected them. For several seconds, the busy marketplace seemed to disappear. Elijah cleared his throat awkwardly. Nia smiled. The sight of him flustered amused her. Normally, he seemed calm and confident. Today, he looked completely caught off guard. Eventually, they both laughed. The tension eased, but neither forgot what he had said. "To see you." Those words remained in Nia's thoughts long after he left that afternoon. That evening, she sat alone in her room, staring through the window at a sky full of stars. The realization she had been avoiding finally became impossible to deny. She was falling in love. The truth both thrilled and terrified her. Thrilled because she genuinely cared about Elijah. Terrified because she was still hiding the biggest truth of all. He did not know who she really was. Every day made the secret heavier, yet she could not bring herself to reveal it. Not yet. For the first time in her life, someone cared about her without knowing she was a princess, and she was not ready to risk losing that. The following week brought the village harvest festival. It was one of the biggest celebrations of the year. Colorful decorations filled every street. Musicians played cheerful songs. Food stalls lined the roads. Families arrived from neighboring villages. The atmosphere felt joyful and alive. As evening approached, Nia closed her stall and prepared to enjoy the festivities. Just as she turned to leave, a familiar voice called her name. She looked up. Elijah stood nearby. For a moment neither spoke. Then he extended his hand. Would she like to walk with him? Her heart skipped. She smiled. She would. Together they entered the celebration. Lanterns illuminated the streets. Music drifted through the evening air. Children danced. Families laughed. For the first time, Nia experienced a festival not as royalty, but as an ordinary woman. She loved every moment. No formal duties, no royal expectations, just simple happiness. They shared roasted corn, watched performers entertain crowds, laughed together at harmless jokes. Every moment felt natural, comfortable, as though they belonged together. Several times their hands brushed accidentally. Each contact felt impossible to ignore. Neither mentioned it, neither forgot it. Later that evening, they found themselves beside a quiet river beyond the village. The sounds of the festival faded into the distance. Moonlight reflected beautifully across the water. For a while, neither spoke. The silence felt peaceful. Then Elijah broke it. He wanted to tell her something. Nia listened carefully. He admitted that when he first arrived in the market, he expected nothing unusual. It was simply another business trip. Then he met a banana seller. Nia smiled. Elijah confessed that afterward he kept inventing reasons to return. The explanation made her laugh. He jokingly blamed a severe banana addiction. The humor eased the tension, yet something deeper remained beneath the joke, something important. Elijah turned toward her. His expression became serious. Meeting her had changed something in his life. The words touched her deeply, because she felt exactly the same. After a long moment, she admitted the truth. He had changed something for her too. Their eyes met. Neither looked away. The connection between them suddenly felt undeniable. Then a group of villagers passed nearby. The moment broke. Both smiled awkwardly. Yet nothing had truly changed. The invisible line between friendship and something more had already been crossed. Over the following weeks, their bond continued deepening. Sometimes they talked for hours. Sometimes they simply enjoyed sitting together. Words became less important. Being together felt enough. One afternoon, Elijah arrived unusually late. The moment Nia saw him, relief washed over her. The reaction startled her. She had not realized how worried she had been. When she mentioned that he looked tired, he admitted he had experienced a difficult day. Without thinking, she handed him a bottle of water. Their fingers touched briefly. Neither pulled away immediately. The contact lingered. Time seemed to slow. Then both stepped back smiling. Embarrassed, happy. That evening, several hours away, Elijah sat alone on the balcony of his home. His younger sister noticed his expression immediately. According to her, he had the unmistakable look of a man in love. Elijah denied it. His smile betrayed him completely. Meanwhile, back at the palace, King Marcus listened carefully as one of the hidden guards delivered a routine report. The king had received updates ever since Nia left. Most reports focused on safety. This one was different. The guard smiled. The princess seemed happy. The king nodded. That was all he truly wanted. Then the guard added one more detail. There was a man. King Marcus raised an eyebrow. Very interesting. Far away, unaware of the conversation taking place, Nia sat beneath a tree outside the market while Elijah joined her. Together they watched the sunset paint the sky with shades of gold and orange. Eventually Elijah realized something he could no longer deny. What he felt was no longer friendship, no longer simple attraction. It was something deeper, something powerful. He was falling in love. And as Nia looked toward the horizon, feeling exactly the same, neither realized how close they were to a moment that would change everything forever. The days following that evening, beneath the sunset, felt different. Nothing about Nia and Elijah's routine changed on the surface. He still visited the marketplace. She still sold bananas. They still spent hours talking whenever possible. Yet something new now existed between them, something neither could ignore. Their friendship had quietly transformed into something deeper, something beautiful, something dangerous. Love. Neither had spoken the word aloud. Neither felt ready. But both knew it was there, growing stronger with every passing day. One morning, Nia arrived at her stall earlier than usual. She had barely slept the previous night. Every time she closed her eyes, she found herself thinking about Elijah. His smile, his kindness, the way he listened whenever she spoke, the way he noticed small details nobody else saw. No man had ever treated her this way. Not as a princess, not as a future queen, not as a prize, simply as a woman he genuinely cared about. The realization filled her heart with warmth and fear, because the longer this continued, the heavier her secret became. Every day she delayed telling him the truth, felt dishonest. She hated hiding part of herself, yet she was not ready. The fear of losing him remained too strong. A familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. "Good morning." She looked up instantly. Elijah stood before her, carrying a small paper bag. His smile immediately brightened her mood. "What's that?" she asked. "Breakfast." Nia laughed. He explained that she occasionally became so busy working that she forgot to eat. The observation surprised her because it was true. She had never mentioned it. He had simply noticed. The realization touched her deeply. Small acts of attention often meant more than grand gestures. That day passed quickly. Customers came and went. The marketplace remained lively. Yet both found reasons to remain close. Laughing, talking, enjoying every available moment. Several days later, Elijah arrived looking unusually serious. Nia noticed immediately. Something was bothering him. At first he denied it, then he sighed. After a long pause, he asked a question. When she thought about the future, what did she see? The question caught her off guard, because she already knew the answer. Whenever she imagined happiness, Elijah appeared somewhere within it. Still, she answered carefully. She saw peace, family, people she loved, someone with whom she could share life. His eyes lingered on hers. The meaning behind the conversation felt impossible to miss. Yet before either could say more, customers arrived. The moment slipped away, at least temporarily. That evening, Elijah returned home feeling frustrated. Not because anything had gone wrong. Because he was tired of pretending, tired of acting as though Nia was only a friend. She was not. Not anymore. Meanwhile, Nia sat alone in her room, wrestling with similar emotions. Without realizing it, both were moving toward the same conclusion. Something had to change. A few days later, perfect weather settled over the village. The sky remained clear. A gentle breeze drifted through the fields. Business ended earlier than usual. As vendors began closing their stalls, Elijah approached. He asked her to come with him. When she asked where they were going, he smiled. It was a surprise. Together they followed a quiet path beyond the village. Fields stretched endlessly around them. Birds sang from nearby trees. The afternoon sunlight painted everything gold. Eventually they reached a large mango tree, standing alone atop a hill. The view stole her breath. Rolling countryside extended toward the horizon. Distant villages rested beneath a sky glowing with late afternoon light. Naya stared in amazement. It was beautiful. Elijah smiled. He had hoped she would think so. Together they sat beneath the tree. For a while neither spoke. The silence felt natural, comfortable, as though words were unnecessary. Eventually, Elijah admitted that he often visited this place whenever he needed to think. Nia asked what occupied his thoughts. His answer came softly. Everything. A gentle breeze moved through the branches above them. The setting sun slowly painted the sky in shades of gold and orange. The moment felt unforgettable, though neither fully understood why. After a while, Elijah became unusually quiet. Nia noticed immediately. When she asked what he was thinking about, he surprised her. He was thinking about her. The honesty caught her completely off guard. He laughed awkwardly. There was apparently no graceful way to say such things. Nia smiled. For several moments they simply looked at one another. No pretending, no hiding. The truth now stood between them. Visible, impossible to ignore. Finally, Elijah took a deep breath. The way he spoke her name made her pulse quicken. He needed to tell her something. Every nerve in her body seemed suddenly awake. Part of her already knew what was coming. Still, hearing it mattered. Elijah explained that meeting her had changed his life. When he first saw her, he thought she was beautiful. But beauty was not why he kept returning. He returned because of who she was. The words struck her heart with incredible force. Not because they were dramatic, because they were sincere. He had met many people throughout his life, yet nobody felt like her. She made ordinary days feel important. Tears gathered in her eyes. Then he finally spoke the words she had secretly dreamed about hearing. He was falling in love with her. Silence followed. Beautiful. Terrifying. Wonderful silence. For a moment, Nia could not speak. Months of loneliness. Months of uncertainty. Months spent wondering whether true love even existed. Everything had led to this moment. At last she found her voice and admitted the truth. She was falling in love with him too. Relief flooded his face. The transformation was immediate. Both laughed. The tension shattered. Only happiness remained. Slowly, Elijah reached for her hand. Their fingers intertwined naturally, as though they had always belonged together. The distance between them suddenly felt very small. The world seemed to hold its breath. Sunlight bathed the hill in gold. Leaves rustled softly above. Then Elijah gently touched her cheek. His movement remained careful, respectful, tender, giving her every opportunity to pull away. She did not, because she did not want to. Slowly, he leaned closer. Their eyes never left each other. Then their lips met. The kiss was soft, gentle, perfect. Not rushed, not desperate. Simply two hearts finally expressing what words could no longer contain. When they pulled apart, neither spoke immediately. Words felt unnecessary. They smiled, then laughed. Not because anything was funny, because they were happy, the kind of happiness that makes laughter unavoidable. As the sun disappeared below the horizon, they remained beneath the mango tree talking about dreams and possibilities. For the first time in her life, Nia truly believed she had found what she had been searching for. A man who loved her heart. A man who chose her without knowing she was royalty. A man who saw only Nia. What neither of them realized was that the greatest test of their love was approaching rapidly. And soon, the secret she had hidden for months would no longer remain hidden. Princess Nia woke the next morning with a smile she could not suppress. Every memory from the previous evening replayed inside her mind. The mango tree, the golden sunset, Elijah's confession, their first kiss. For the first time in years, happiness felt effortless, real, complete. She remained lying in bed for several minutes, smiling at the ceiling. After spending so much of her life searching for genuine love, she finally believed she had found it. Or at least she thought she had. Yet beneath the happiness lurked a familiar fear. The secret, her identity, the truth she still had not shared. For months she had convinced herself there would be a better time, a safer time, a more comfortable time. Now those excuses felt increasingly fragile, because the deeper her feelings became, the more dangerous the secret became. If Elijah learned the truth from someone else, the damage could be impossible to repair. Perhaps it was finally time. Perhaps she should tell him everything. The thought terrified her. What if he felt betrayed? What if he believed she had manipulated him? What if he walked away? The possibility tightened her chest. Still, she could not hide forever. Sooner or later, he deserved the truth. What Nia did not know was that fate had already decided how the truth would be revealed, and it would happen much sooner than she expected. That afternoon, the marketplace bustled with unusual energy. Visitors crowded the narrow streets, merchants called out prices, children darted through the crowd laughing. Everything appeared normal, until several luxury vehicles rolled into the village. People stopped and stared. Expensive cars rarely visited the area. Moments later, a group of well-dressed individuals stepped out. Their clothing and mannerisms immediately suggested influence and wealth. The crowd watched curiously. Nia continued serving customers, paying little attention at first. Then she noticed something alarming. One of the visitors looked familiar. Very familiar. Her heart immediately sank. It was a senior advisor from the royal palace, someone who knew exactly who she was. Panic flashed through her. What was he doing here? The advisor scanned the marketplace. His eyes landed on her. For one brief second, shock crossed his face. Then realization followed. Nia quickly looked away. Too late, he had recognized her. The advisor immediately approached. Every step felt like a countdown. The marketplace continued moving around them, unaware of the disaster unfolding. When he reached the stall, he bowed instinctively, a royal bow, a bow no ordinary villager would ever receive. Nia's blood ran cold. She whispered urgently for him to stop, but several people nearby had already noticed. Confused whispers spread. Why was such an important man bowing to a banana seller? The advisor apologized and lowered his voice. He explained that King Marcus urgently requested her presence at the palace. A serious matter required immediate attention. Nia closed her eyes briefly. Everything she feared was happening. People nearby were listening, watching, wondering. And then came the worst possible moment. A familiar voice spoke from behind her. Nia! Her entire body froze. Slowly she turned around. Elijah stood only a few feet away. His expression carried confusion, concern, suspicion. He had clearly witnessed the exchange, the advisor's bow, the unusual respect, the urgent request. Questions filled his eyes, questions she could no longer avoid. For several seconds, nobody spoke. The marketplace seemed unusually quiet, as if the entire world were waiting. Finally, Elijah asked the question she had dreaded for months. Basit, who exactly was she? Nia felt her heart pounding. The moment had arrived. Not beneath perfect circumstances, not during a carefully planned conversation, not in private. Here, now, in front of everyone. She looked at the people surrounding her, then at the advisor, then back at Elijah. The man she loved, the man who believed she was simply a banana seller. Slowly, she took a breath and told the truth. She explained that her name really was Nia, but she was not an ordinary villager. She was Princess Nia, daughter of King Marcus, future queen of the kingdom of Ashford. Silence exploded across the marketplace. People stared in disbelief. Some gasped, others simply froze. Miss Eleanor nearly dropped an entire basket of vegetables. The children stopped playing. Customers stood motionless. Nobody knew what to say. Elijah looked as though the world had shifted beneath his face. Shock filled his face, then confusion, then hurt. Nia saw it happen, saw every emotion, and it broke her heart. She tried explaining, tried telling him why she had done it. How years of false affection had left her desperate, how she needed someone to love her without knowing about the crown. How meeting him had changed everything. But Elijah remained silent. The revelation had struck him too deeply. Every memory suddenly looked different. every conversation, every moment, every truth, or what he thought had been truth. Finally, he spoke. His voice carried pain. He asked why she had never trusted him enough to tell him. The question pierced her heart, because she had no good answer, only fear. Fear of losing him, fear of ruining what they shared, fear of becoming just another princess in his eyes. Tears filled her eyes as she tried to explain, yet the damage had already been done. Elijah looked away. For the first time since they met, distance existed between them. A painful distance, a heartbreaking distance. He admitted that he needed time. Time to think, time to understand, time to decide what everything meant. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. Nia stood frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe. The crowd remained silent, watching. Elijah reached his car, opened the door, and drove away. She watched until the vehicle disappeared beyond the village road. Only then did the tears finally fall. For months, she had searched for a man who could love her without knowing she was a princess. She had found him, and now she feared she might have lost him forever. As the sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon, one terrible question echoed through her mind. Would Elijah be able to forgive the secret? Or had the truth arrived too late to save the love they had built together? The days following Elijah's departure felt unbearably long. For the first time since arriving in the village, Nia dreaded waking each morning. The marketplace still opened, customers still arrived, life continued moving forward. Yet everything felt different, empty. The place that had once filled her with joy now reminded her of what she feared she had lost. Every time she heard an engine in the distance, her heart leapt with hope. Every time it was not him, disappointment followed. Miss Eleanor watched her closely. The older woman offered comfort whenever she could, but even kindness could not erase heartbreak. For the first time since leaving the palace, Nia questioned her decision. Had she made a terrible mistake? Perhaps she should have told Elijah the truth earlier. Perhaps she should never have hidden it at all. The secret that began as protection had become a wall between them, a wall she desperately wished she could remove. Back at the palace, King Marcus listened quietly as his daughter described everything. The confession, the marketplace, Elijah's reaction, his departure. When she finished, tears filled her eyes. The king remained silent for a moment, then he spoke gently. Love built upon honesty could survive difficult truths. Love built only upon appearances could not. The difference would soon reveal itself. Nia wanted to believe him, but hope felt fragile. Days passed, then another week. Still no sign of Elijah. The silence hurt more than she expected. She missed his laughter, his kindness, his presence. Most of all, she missed the simple comfort of knowing he would appear at her stall. One afternoon, after closing for the day, she walked alone toward the hill where the great mango tree stood. The place held countless memories. Their conversations, their dreams, their first kiss. As she reached the hilltop, the setting sun painted the countryside gold. The view remained beautiful, yet her heart felt heavy. She sat beneath the tree and stared toward the horizon. For a long time, she remained alone. Then she heard footsteps. At first, she assumed it was another villager. She did not bother turning around. The footsteps continued. Closer. Closer. Something about them felt familiar. Slowly, she looked up and froze. Elijah stood only a few feet away. For several seconds, neither moved, neither spoke. Nia's heart pounded so loudly she could barely think. He looked different, tired, thoughtful, but he was there. Finally, Elijah sat beside her beneath the tree. The silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, just important. At last he spoke. The previous week had been difficult. The revelation had shocked him. Everything he believed about her had changed instantly. At first he felt hurt, confused, even angry. Nia lowered her eyes. She understood. Then Elijah continued. During the days apart, he replayed every memory they shared, every conversation, every laugh, every moment. And eventually he realized something important. The woman he fell in love with had never changed. She was still the same person. The same woman who sold bananas. The same woman who gave extra fruit to struggling mothers. The same woman who listened to people with kindness. The same woman who sat beside him during storms and sunsets. The crown changed none of those things. Tears filled Nia's eyes. Elijah looked at her, really looked at her. Then he admitted something. The truth had not destroyed his love. It had only forced him to understand it. Because if he loved her only as a banana seller, then his feelings were incomplete. He needed to love every part of her. The woman, the princess, the future queen. All of it. Nia could no longer hold back her tears. Months of fear, regret, and uncertainty finally broke free. She apologized, not for who she was, but for hiding it from him. Elijah nodded. The apology mattered. Then he smiled, a familiar smile, the smile she had missed every single day. Slowly, he reached for her hand, just as he had beneath this same tree before. Their fingers intertwined once more. The simple gesture felt like coming home. For several moments, neither spoke. Words seemed unnecessary. The answer had already arrived. Love had survived, not because it was perfect, because it was real. Months later, the kingdom celebrated a wedding unlike any in recent memory. Citizens filled the streets. Music echoed through towns and villages. Families gathered to celebrate. Yet what made the occasion remarkable was not the royal ceremony. It was the story behind it. The future queen had found a man who loved her before knowing she wore a crown, and the man had chosen her even after discovering the truth. Together, Nia and Elijah built a life founded not upon wealth, titles, or power. They built it upon trust, respect, friendship, and love. Years later, people still told their story. Not because it involved a princess, not because it involved a palace, but because it carried a lesson everyone could understand. The most valuable thing a person can offer is not status, not money, not influence, it is character. Real love begins when people see beyond appearances and choose each other anyway. And in the end, that was exactly what Nia had been searching for all along. She left a palace to discover whether true love existed. What she found was something even greater. Proof that the right person loves the heart before the crown. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, your viewing location, and share this video.